Herzlich willkommen zu Litlaunch TV von Hein und Walden. Unser Gast heute Abend ist Markus Torgeby, ein Aussteiger, der als 20-Jähriger gut 4 Jahre lang allein in einem Waldstück in Mittelschweden gelebt hat und der uns heute von seinen Abenteuern, seinen Erfahrungen berichten wird. Mein Name ist Harald Willenbrock, ich bin Journalist und einer der Macher des Outdoor-Magazins Walden, in dessen aktuelle Ausgabe wir Markus Torgeby ebenfalls vorstellen. Ich hatte vor einiger Zeit bereits das Vergnügen, Markus zu interviewen und freue mich sehr, dass er sich heute nochmal Zeit nimmt, Ihnen und uns von seinen Erlebnissen zu berichten. Da die meisten von Ihnen vermutlich genauso wenig Schwedisch sprechen wie ich, werden Markus und ich das Gespräch auf Englisch führen und ich werde von Zeit zu Zeit ein paar Aussagen auf Deutsch übersetzen oder versuchen zusammenzufassen. Es soll aber nicht ein einsamer Dialog von Markus Torgeby und mir sein, sondern Sie sind Teilnehmer dieses Gesprächs und herzlich eingeladen, Ihre Fragen in das Chatfenster unter diesem Videofenster, das Sie jetzt hoffentlich sehen, einzutragen. Wenn Sie Lust haben, können Sie da auch Ihren Namen eintragen, müssen Sie aber nicht. In jedem Fall freuen wir uns über viele Fragen von Ihnen. Einige sind schon da. Wir sammeln die und werden versuchen, die im Laufe des Gesprächs alle unterzubringen. Ich versuche, sie korrekt zu übersetzen. So, genug der Vorrede. Wir haben einen kurzen Film, der Markus vorstellt. Danach sehen wir uns gleich wieder hier.
You know, I just had so many thoughts in my head and I had no direction. So I just thought that I must put myself in a situation where I live close to my basic needs. And maybe if I do that, maybe I will find my own way. So I just did that.
Markus Torgeby was a promising ultra-runner until an injury ended his career and triggered a life crisis. With nothing but an axe, a sleeping bag and the clothes on his body, he bought a one-way ticket to Jämtland forest, where temperatures plummet to minus 40 degrees in winter. For 4 years, Markus lived in a simple hut he built by hand, slept on reindeer skin and survived on oatmeal, berries and fish. On these experiences, he wrote a book called Unter freiem Himmel, which is just published in Germany by Heine. With his wife Frida, who contributed to the wonderful photos for the book, and 3 daughters, he lives in Jämtland in a house he built himself not far from the place where he had lived in a tent in the woods.
So, willkommen zurück und herzlich welcome Markus Torgeby.
Hi.
Markus, I'm in Hamburg. Just let our viewers know where you are, from where you join us.
Right now, I am down south in Sweden on an island outside Gothenburg. And it's the island I was born and raised. So I took the car down south yesterday because I have a job that I'm going to do down here. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I leave the snow up north and now it's a little bit rainy and 15 degrees. So it's a big change from where I usually live.
And you're quite used to snow, as we know from the great book that you wrote. In German, it's called Unter freiem Himmel, published by Hein Hardcore. Markus, in this book, you recollect your 4 years in the Swedish woods, which was an extreme experience with periods of fear and loneliness, as we learned from your book. I was wondering, was there nevertheless a moment when you realized, well, leaving to the woods was the best thing I could do?
Yeah, so for me, it was just before I moved out, I had so many thoughts in my head and I had no direction. And my life was quite tough at the moment when I was around 20 years old. So for me, when that thought came into my head that maybe you're going to live in the forest and, I just followed that thought and it one of the best thing I have ever done, because I don't think that I had lived today if I didn't, lived in the forest under those 4 years.
Which leads to quite a general question, which we will go in depth later on, but just for a start, what can one learn from the woods? Is there something specific that trees, moss, water, nature, quietness, or the combination of all that can teach us?
Yes, maybe one of the biggest lessons for me were that I cannot control the weather. I cannot control the nature. So I must just find ways around that I did not can control, you know. So that was a big lesson for me, that I must just find, you know, ways around those things. Yeah, and I think, yeah, so that was a big lesson for me. Because I think today that many people, they try to focus a lot of energy in things that they cannot control. So, and I learned that in the forest, it's no meaning. So I try to focus on the thing that I can, you know, in some way control. Yeah.
That leads directly to a question that Sabine, one of our listeners, asked. She wanted to know whether you think that your stay in the woods had made you more resilient and maybe helped you to master other crisis situations, like the pandemic, for example. Is there something to that?
Yes, of course. You know, for me, I think as a coronavirus, of course, it's a big thing, but you know, I cannot control that, so I try to focusing on the things that I can control. And also, when you are outside in the nature, as a nature, it doesn't care about corona. And I think for me, it's healthy for the body to just be in that environment, because it's also a reminder of you know, oh yeah. So also, and when you live outside for 4 years, you realize that life and nature are circular. So sometimes it's cold and sometimes it's warm, and that's the way it should be. And you take that experience into the head, and you realize that when you are a human being, sometimes you are going to be sad and sometimes you're happy, and that's the way it should be.
Okay. Markus hat jetzt ein bisschen darüber erzählt, dass die Natur ihn gelehrt hat, Dinge zu akzeptieren, dass man Dinge nicht kontrollieren oder steuern kann, sondern dass sie einfach so sind. Wie zum Beispiel eine Pandemie oder wie, dass es Zeiten gibt, in denen man glücklich und unglücklich ist, und das einfach zu akzeptieren und nicht zu versuchen, das zu ändern. Das nur in Kürze vielleicht zusammengefasst. Markus, let's go a bit back to your history, where you came from. You were born on an island off the coast of Gothenburg, on the Swedish coast, to a family of fishermen. And you were less than 10 years old, right, when your mother started suffering from multiple sclerosis. I think that changed almost everything for you, right?
Yeah, so it was a really big change back home, you know. So before that, it was just like a normal family. You know, when you are a parent, you do a lot of things. And my mother did a lot of things, you know, cook the food and do the laundry and all those kind of things. And just, it was 1985, around Christmas. My mother, she had like a really bad headache. So my father became worried and took her to the hospital. And then just 1 week later, she came back home. And then she had like, what you say, crutches, also like sticks.
Yeah, crutches.
So, because and it's no headache anymore, but she had like a really big problem with the balance. And then just and back then the doctors didn't know where it was. So, and then, you know, it just continued. She become more and more sicker. So the body starts to it didn't work. And then just 6-8 months later, the diagnosis came, like multiple sclerosis. And it was a really big change back home, because it was up to me and my siblings and my father, of course, to do all those things that your mother normally do. So it was a big change. And it was, and I was 9-10 years old, and I had like 3 younger siblings. So it was a big responsibility for me.
You describe your family as being very religious. There was a lot of praying and hoping in the house. Obviously, it didn't help much. What did religion mean for you as a small boy? Did it help you, or was it some sort of hope? Or
hope. I think, I am still a believer, and because it's also a way of living, I think. So you cannot, I cannot, know, but I believe that sometimes miracle can happen, and I think it's helped me. It helped my head anyway. So I stayed to that, mentality, and the whole area where I was born and raised are into that. And sometimes, of course, it be also when it become a little bit more hardcore religious, it can be a little bit, too much. But for me, it was a little bit tough when I was young, all the fishermen, and it was a little bit more like hardcore fundamental religion people. But I can understand why they thought the way they thought also, because when you live like a fisherman, life is quite tough, and I think your beliefs must also be quite tough. So maybe that's the reason why it was also the religious environment were so black and white.
Okay, let's switch a bit. You discovered something else in your early life. There was ultra running, and you obviously became a good ultra runner. You even reached the 4th place at Swedish championships, and you seem to have trained really, really hard.
When I started running when I was 16 years old, and then I just ran track. So after 2 weeks of training, I ran my first Swedish national championship, and I become number 4, just 2 seconds after the winner. So I just realized that this is my thing. So so I just start to train really hard after that.
But then, after some time, something again tragically happened. Your foot arch collapsed, and an injury that your coach blamed you for. And at the moment you wrote, your mind fell apart. What happened?
Back home, it was like a big worry of my mother, because we didn't know also, will she survive? So we were worried a lot, me and my siblings and my father. And my mother, she was really sad, because life became just not the way she wanted it to be. And when you live close to that, it's a little bit tough. So when I start running, it was just like freedom. And I just felt that this is my thing. And my trainer, he was like really hardcore. And, I like that, because when you are a little bit lost and worried in the head, when you find a person or a trainer that, are a little bit more black and white, it feels like, for me, it felt very, 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 very good. But then after maybe just 2 years, my trainer's, ambition for me, they were very, very high. And one competition I failed, and then, my trainer just loses it and becomes really, really frustrated. And in that moment, something happens. I just felt that, I had high ambitions for myself, but I felt that my trainer's ambition for me was even higher. And, he was really, really angry. So something happens in the head after that episode. When I go to compete, it was not so easy, because I had some kind of, I felt like a big pressure every time I go to compete. And my trainer, he pushed really, really hard. So I just lost my head because of the pressure, I think.
Okay. Markus hat jetzt kurz erzählt, dass er, nachdem seine Mutter an Multiple Sklerose erkrankt war, mit 16 Jahren Ultrarunning begonnen hat, und 2 Wochen nachdem er es begonnen hatte, bei den schwedischen Meisterschaften Platz 4 erreicht hat, 2 Sekunden hinter dem Sieger. Also er kannte, das war sein Ding. Sein Trainer aber sehr ehrgeizig war und ihn gepusht hat, und dann kam es eben dazu, dass seine Fußgewölbe kollabiert ist und er nicht mehr trainieren konnte, und sein Trainer hat es ihm angelastet. Es gibt ja was dann passiert, gibt es eine kleine Passage, die ich sehr beeindruckend finde, aus Markus' Buch, die ich kurz auf Deutsch vorlesen möchte. Markus, the passage where you speak about what happened to you afterwards. Zurück auf Öckerö hatte ich das Gefühl, als stünde jemand auf meinem Brustkorb. Es war mir unmöglich, tief durchzuatmen. Meine Zunge schwoll an und bekam tiefe Risse. Es tat weh beim Essen. Ich wusste nicht, was ich tun sollte, nur, dass ich die Insel verlassen musste, weg von all dem, was um mich herum war. weg von der Krankheit meiner Mutter, weg von spirituellen Zweifeln und dem ständigen Genörgel meiner Oma, dass ich erwachsen werden und mir einen Job suchen sollte. Während des Schuljahres hörte ich von einem Mann, der viele Jahre zuvor ein Stück von der Schule entfernt in einem Zelt gelebt hatte. Ich war begeistert und entschloss mich, komplett auszuziehen und unter einem Baumwolltuch im Wald zu wohnen. Mir gefiel die Idee, vollständig auf mich allein gestellt zu sein, wenn viel auf dem Spiel stand und alles schiefgehen konnte. Ein bisschen wie früher, wenn mein Großvater und seine Brüder zum Fischen hinausfuhren. Ich dachte, dass die Natur und die Jahreszeiten mir helfen könnten, einen Weg zu finden, wie ich mich zu all dem verhalten sollte, was außer meiner Kontrolle lag. Die Dinge, die mir das Atmen erschwerten und meine Gedanken herumwirbelten. So Markus, you mentioned earlier that the move into the woods was for you a sheer survival strategy. What exactly did you want to survive, and why did you have the idea that nature and the seasons could help you in doing so?
I think I must just do a short recap because when I get this big injury in my foot, so I still have a problem with my foot, and it's almost 26 years ago. So it was a big injury. And when I talked to my trainer back then, he just told me, it's no problem with your foot. It's the head that you have a problem with, So, when I came back home from the training, and I had no way of coping with all the feelings I have, because when I ran, it was a little bit easier in the head, because when I ran, I had no thoughts about my mother and all the things that I was able to control. So yeah, so when I get this big injury and I just felt this big anxiety in my body, I just realized that I must put myself in a situation where it's just me. And maybe I will find something if I do that. So that was the reason why I took the train down south, up north, and just walk into the forests and just stay there, because I thought that I must live here and maybe I will find my own meaning. But I didn't know, but I thought maybe this can help me. So yeah.
What would have been the alternative?
Death, I think, because it felt like that in my head. I couldn't. So it's a little bit hard for me to talk about this, because it was so long time ago. But I felt that I didn't have any meaning. I have no direction. I couldn't take any decisions. It was not. It was hard for me to eat, and it was even hard for me to breathe. So I just felt like really crazy in the head. So I think this was I had one chance and I took it,
Oh. You then took the train up north to the middle Sweden, where you attended a school for becoming sort of a nurse. Is that right? For old people?
No, yeah. So the school I went to, it was a school. So it was focusing on a little bit more skiing and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Then one day you made the decision to go into the woods. Do you remember you walked please describe how that worked. What did you take with you? And do you remember your first night out there?
Yes. I just after the summer vacation, so I just thought that, okay, I'm going to live hardcore in the forest. So I just had like a big backpack with the sleeping bag, and my grandfather gave me an axe, and I had like a knife and some clothes on the body, and then I just start walking from the train station, and I walk 3 hours out in the forest. Okay. I find like an opening in the forest, and also it was very close to a small river, and I just felt that this is the place. So I start to build my own camp there. I chopped down some things from the trees, also like
branches of the tree,
the arms from the trees, and I built like a bed from that. So the first night I just lay like on a really thick layer of this kind of
canopy.
Yeah. and then under just the open sky, and then after some days I go down to the village and buy like a big blanket, also really big, and then I build like a teepee from that. So I built my own camp, and just thought that I'm going to be prepared before the winter, because I had decided that I'm going to stay out here for at least 1 year. You know, that was my mental picture. So. And of course, in the beginning, it was just wonderful to be just by myself in the forest, because August in Sweden, it's up north, it's quite light. You know, you see the sun almost the whole day, and it's not so cold, and it's no mosquitoes. So it was just a happy time the first week. Then it become a little bit more tough. Also,
yeah. What became tough?
Also, the first thing that I faced were when everything was prepared. Then this restless feeling just hit me. You know, when you are restless, it's really hard to cope with that. You know, and I thought, what can I do? Because I also understand that if I'm going to stay out here for myself, I must find a way around this. I must be able to don't do anything and still feel, you know, happy, you know. And also I think this is really important, because when my mother was, in the end, when she was really, really sick, she was not able to do anything with the body. The only thing she was able to do were to listen, you know. And on the island, people that have a little bit problems, they just call my mother, and she had like the telephone over the ears, and people just talk, and my mother listened. And I saw in my mother's eyes that was like a big satisfaction for her. And I also saw that it felt, I think, meaningful for her. And you know, and when I moved out in the forest, I was just used to do a lot of things. My life was just to, you know, pushing and to you know, work and things like that. So I thought that if I find a way around this restless feeling, maybe I find the thing that my mother had, you know. Because I was to just be able to just sit just by yourself and feel okay with that. But in the beginning, it was really, really tough. So I start to just sit. I find like a tree stump, maybe 3 kilometers from the teepee. And one day I just sat there for maybe 30 minutes. And the day after, I go to the same tree stump. And then I sat 1 hour. And the day after, 2 hours. And then 3 hours. And then 4 hours every day for maybe 4 months. And then I just felt, now it's okay. Now I have find this, you know, feeling in my head that I can just sit here and still my life is okay. So that was the first big lesson from the forest, I think. But it took me like 4 months of sitting just on my, you know, butt every day. And it was really, really tough because, you know, you see, I talk fast and I run fast and I just, you know, I want to do a lot of things. But yeah.
Markus hat beschrieben, wie er in der ersten Zeit lernen musste oder sich gezwungen hat zu lernen, nichts zu tun im Wald. Er war immer jemand, der viel gesprochen hat, schnell gelaufen ist, ruhelos war. Und im Buch beschreibt er sehr eindrucksvoll, wie er auf einer Lichtung einen Baumstumpf entdeckte und sich dann Tag für Tag gezwungen hat, ist wieder zu dem Baumstumpf gegangen, egal ob es regnete oder schneite, sich hingesetzt hat und stundenlang einfach nur da gesessen hat. Und nach, jetzt sagt er, 4 Monaten etwa, hätte er dann so einen Status der Ruhe dort gefunden. But before that, I think in your book you describe another feeling that occurred at night in the dark nights. You describe the beauty of nature and loneliness, but on the other hand, you describe massive fears that drove you in the first month. Fears which began each day at dawn and made the first months, well, it sounds quite like horror to me. Please describe what happened at night.
You know, I just realized that I am really afraid of the dark, and I mean really afraid. And now, with perspective, I can see I was born and raised on an island, and the houses, everything is very close, and it's like lights everywhere. So from that environment to just be by myself in the forest is a big step. So when the darkness came in October, it was really, really tough. So I really struggled with that. And I tried to find a way around that, but it took me maybe around 4 months to find a way to cope with that feeling. And
how did you do that?
In the beginning, I just tried to fight against it, try to think positive and things like that, but that didn't work. But maybe in December, in the end of December, I just realized, okay, Markus, you are afraid of the dark, and that's okay. So I just accept that feeling. I gave that feeling like a big hug and let it into my heart, and then it disappeared. So I think that is a really big lesson for me. Sometimes, also in life, you will have problems, and I think it's so easy to try to escape them. But if you want to be released, it's so important to let them in, because when you let them in, you can see them, and then you can start working with them. So the way I found this way around the darkness, also, I'm so grateful that I find that way. Mm-hmm. You must just accept the things you're not going to control, and it's okay to be afraid. Mm-hmm. It's okay if you have like problem with your relation with your wife or whatever. You must accept it, and then you can start working with it. It's just like that.
There's a beautiful, almost philosophical passage in the book where you describe exactly this notion, which I would like to briefly read. To our listeners today. Markus Torgeby hat gerade darüber gesprochen, dass er in den ersten Monaten auch realisiert, dass er große Angst vor der Dunkelheit hatte, was ihm vorher nicht so bewusst war, weil auf Öckerö, der Insel, wo er groß geworden war, immer Menschen sind, immer Licht ist und so weiter. Aber hier war er nun wirklich im Wald und allein und im Dunkeln, hat von Freddy Krüger geträumt, etc. pp. Also ganz schlimm. Bis er sich vorgenommen hat, diese Angst zu akzeptieren und, wie er gesagt, zu umarmen. Danach war es besser. In seinem Buch schreibt er, wenn du etwas verlierst, musst du da suchen, wo du es hast fallen lassen, auch wenn es dort dunkel ist. Es bringt nichts, 200 Meter weiter weg im Licht zu suchen. Es ist typisch für uns Menschen, dass wir unsere Wunden behandeln, indem wir ein Pflaster draufkleben und dann weitermachen oder eine andere Person um Rat fragen. Aber es liegt nicht in der Verantwortung eines anderen, dich zu dem zu machen, wozu du bestimmt bist. Mein Trainer und mein Pastor hatten klare und deutliche Antworten. Härter trainieren, noch mehr glauben. Sie stellten einfache Regeln auf. Befolge diesen Trainingsplan, vermeide alle Sünden. Solange ich sie befolgte, wäre alles in Ordnung. Sie hatten keine Zweifel. Menschen zu folgen, die einem entschlossenen Weg weisen, kann vorübergehend hilfreich sein und dringende Probleme lösen. Für mich war es so. Aber keiner von ihnen hat das ganze Bild gesehen. Wenn mein Trainer gemerkt hätte, dass das Leben aus mehr besteht, als nur zu rennen, wenn er mich zu Hause bei meiner Mutter gesehen hätte, mitbekommen hätte, wie wenig ich aß, wie schwer es für mich war, nachts zur Ruhe zu kommen und dass ich die Schule nicht schaffte, hätte er wahrscheinlich erkannt, dass er mich zu heftig pushte. Markus, now as we've talked about the first time in the woods, here's a question by a listener asking, Nike fragt, is asking, what is the thing that surprised you most in that first year about yourself or whatever? Was there any surprise that you encountered?
Surprise? No, also it surprised me that when you are afraid, when I was afraid of how much energy you put into that, it's maybe 2,000 calories every day in just that thought. So yes, maybe, but I don't think that I was so surprised. It just to maybe it surprised me that you can feel so much when you live in the forest, that you can just feel these pleasant feelings, to be outside for the whole day. And it's possible to live like that, and to live a happy life with I didn't have almost anything. I had some food and but still I felt very, very rich, rich in memories, and maybe that surprised me a little bit.
Okay. I was asking myself what you were doing the whole day. I mean, you described that you forced yourself to sit down and try to calm down. But I mean, you bought food from the nearby village, so you didn't have to care that much about food. You didn't have no mobile, no people to talk with. So, and in summer it's 24, well, almost 24 hours light. So what did you do the whole days in the beginning?
So in the summertime, I always did like one long run every day. So maybe I'll run to, sometimes really, really long, just for myself, because I am enjoying it. But in the winter time, it's a little bit different, because then you must focus really hard, because in Sweden up north, it can be quite cold, minus 40 degrees. So then you must try to stay warm, and you must put a lot of energy into that. And I like that, the feeling when you are really, really cold. Okay, today my fingers are like white because I'm freezing, and you realize that if I cannot start a fire now, I will die. And so you get really motivated. So in the winter time, you're focusing a lot of that to just stay warm. And that's enough, because when you're cold, then you become warm. Life is perfect. So and then in the spring, when the light come and the birds start to sing, life become a little bit more easy. And then you just maybe I train a little bit more in the spring and in the summer, because it was easier. And then also, the thoughts become bigger in the spring and in the summer, because I think you have like more energy. So in many ways, it's a little bit tougher to be by yourself in the spring and in the summer, because the thoughts become so big. So it's a little bit easier for the head to live outside in the winter, because you must focus. And when you focus, life is perfect. So maybe that surprised me a little bit. Also, the big difference between winter and the fall and the summer, also the mentality, what kind of thoughts I had in my head.
Okay.
And also, yes, shoot.
Yeah, so in the winter being more focused, and in the summer the mind opens up, or how would you describe it?
Yeah. So in the morning, I always, eat my porridge, oatmeal porridge, and then maybe, climb a tree or something, and then I did like a long run over the hills, and then maybe go fishing and things like that. And then I came back home in the afternoon, and I start a fire and cook some food, and maybe I had some fish with me. And then around 8, 9 in the evening, I close the door to the teepee and go to bed. So I slept many hours every day, and I had always this. I felt always strong, because no stress, and I was never tired. And it's a good for me. I think it was important to be in that mode for so many years, because when I moved out, I was very, very tired. So it took some time before to get healed in my body and my mind, I think.
Markus hat gerade erzählt, dass er eine Überraschung war, dass er festgestellt hat, wie unterschiedlich man im Sommer und im Winter denkt. Im Sommer ist, wo es in Schweden fast die ganzen 24 Stunden lang hell ist, öffnet sich der Kopf und die Gedanken werden größer, wie er sagte. Im Winter muss man sich auch fokussieren auf Feuer zu machen, warm zu werden, etc. pp. Das war vielleicht ein Learning für ihn, und er hat viel Zeit damit verbracht, Feuer zu machen, zu schlafen, sich auszuruhen von der anstrengenden Zeit vorher, und sich um die täglichen Dinge gekümmert, und das hat ihn befriedigt. Birgit Katrin is asking, did you write a diary in that time, and did you bring any books with you? So no.
I had read maybe under those 4.5 years I lived in the forest, I read 2 books. So not so many books. And then I had a diary maybe 1 year, I think. The third year I had like a diary. But it's really interesting, because I didn't have so many things around me. So my memories are very clear. I still remember a lot of things, because the life I live today and you live today, it's it's so much things around you, and I think you had become a little bit tired. But when you live the way I lived in the forest, you can open up 100%, and it was a really good feeling to just 100% open. I hear, all the birds and the moose and things like that. It was just wonderful. But I can tell you one thing. Also, in the winter time, every day I melt snow to warm water and wash myself, and maybe that took 1 hour. So I had the things to do every day. Start a fire in the morning, and maybe took my skis and did like a ski, maybe 15-20 kilometers back home, start a fire. So I had the things to do, but maybe not the things that normal people do every day. But yeah, for me, it was my life. Yeah.
Markus wants to know, did you start talking to yourself to have some kind of communication, or did you miss talking to other people, or did you enjoy the silence instantly?
So when you are tired, when you are just by yourself for maybe 3 or 4 months, in the beginning I talked to myself, but maybe after 2 months you quit, but you have like a conversation with yourself in the head. But I can still remember, I think after 4 months I had then to talk to anyone, and then I go down to the store to buy some oatmeal, and then I talk to the girl in the and I maybe talked to her for 15 seconds, and then I just felt this is enough. I am full of impressions, and then I can just go back, because I think when you're a little bit hungry, the food tastes good. And I think it's the same way with conversations. If you don't talk so much, then it's enough to talk maybe 5 minutes, because I still remember those 15 seconds, because I'm really longing for that. So I think sometimes for me, I had many thoughts in my head, and to just be by yourself for so long time. It was really, really, it was really, really good, because to be a little bit hungry of everything, not just food, but I think it's a way of feeling more, and I think that can be it helps me a lot anyway.
So would you say that the time in the forest intensified everything, because you miss stuff like conversation, like, I don't know, food or whatever?
Yeah. So you feel more. And I think if you see with perspective, so when you live a normal life and see a guy living like me in the forest, maybe it can look a little bit poor. But for me, life was really, really rich, because I felt so much. I felt so much every day. Because you are hungry, you are freezing, and then you eat some porridge. You're just perfectly happy when you do that. And then you're freezing, you start a fire, immediately you feel that satisfaction, And I think those kind of things, we try to build that away in the society we're living today, because we have everything. The houses are warm, and I think that do something with us, because the nature has shaped us to what we are today. So I think it's important to have still that connection, because I really think that's really, really important.
Markus hat erzählt, dass halt durch die Abwesenheit von Konversationen von Menschen, mit denen er reden konnte, die Dinge größer wurden und wichtiger wurden. Also so wie er sich ausgedrückt hat, wenn man hungrig ist, dann ist schon ein bisschen Essen enorm viel wert. Und so war es das 15-Sekunden-Gespräch mit dem Mädchen an der Kasse im Store im nächsten Dorf, reichte für die nächsten zwei Monate. Dennoch würde mich mal interessieren, warum er nicht eigentlich irgendwann gesagt hat, es ist genug. Markus, originally you said your plan was to stay there for a year, but you extended that to more than 4 years. Why that?
Because life was perfect. It was happy times. I didn't longing for nothing. And to be in that feeling, to just live in the moment every day for 4 years. Also, I am so grateful for that. So that was the reason why I just stayed, because my life had like a meaning. I felt that for myself. So was the reason. Yeah.
And you were never on the edge of giving up at minus 40 degrees, being alone, I don't know.
No.
Never.
I think it's so important to understand why are you doing this, you know? And if my ambition was to find my own head, and then it was a lot of energy in that ambition. So I think it's important to find the why, you know, why are I going to do this? And I think that's important for you, Harald, and it's important for me, and it's important for all those listeners to find the why. And I think it's important to ask yourself that question sometimes, not every day, but maybe once every month, you know. So yeah, for me it's like that in a way.
All right. Yeah. Sounds. Do that right after our talk. But I wanted to know, you did not live in total solitude, but for some time returned to the village, worked in a home for, I think, for old people, right, to earn some money, and then bought some porridge.
Yeah.
So you switch between loneliness and society. Was that different to dive into the other world?
No, but the first maybe 3 years, I just be by myself. So then I had not so much money. So then I work with some older people, but you know, I did that maybe 2 days every month. But then it was just happy to talk to the elders and to talk. So I like that. And then so money was not a big deal, but yeah, I like that. But then after the 4 years, when I decided to leave the forest, to just when I find my wife and things like that, so then it was like a big change, and it took some years to start living a more normal life, and it was really tough in the beginning, you know. And it was also, maybe I go in front here, but it was a little bit tough for my wife also, because I was used to just be by myself out in the forest, and if it's 40 minus degrees outside, it's 40 minus degrees inside. So yeah, if you are used to that and then you live together with someone, you know, it was a little bit crazy in the beginning, but yeah.
What's the best strategy against minus 40 degrees apart from fire?
To have a really good sleeping bag. And I had like a German sleeping bag. I bought it on like a second-hand store, a Faude. I don't know if that brand still are. Yeah, yes. And it's really, it was a good one. And then I had like 2 reindeer skins, and you know, reindeer in the hair in the reindeer, it's like air, so they are very, very warm. And then it's very important to stay still. You are not going to move a lot, because when you move, so so try to lay still, and then you must have like 2 hats on the head, then it's no problem, and no wind, because you know I had the teepee, so but when it's really, really cold, you know, it's not windy, so the weather is always calm, so it's no problem. So maybe I had like a fire going maybe 2 hours in the night, and then I just stop the fire, and then the cold came, but no problem. But it was many mornings I wake up when the pillow, and the pillow was frozen to my beard. And then when so of course it was quite cold in the face, but not in the body. Yeah.
Ich habe Markus gefragt, was ist die beste Strategie gegen Kälte? Minus 40 Grad Kälte ist, außer Feuer natürlich. Und er sagt, ein gutes Sleeping Bag zu haben. Er hat einen von VD und Reindeer Skins, die er über sich gelegt hat, und 2 Mützen übereinander. Und dennoch ist manchmal die Decke an seinem Bart festgefroren. Die musste er morgens abmachen. Markus, there was a surprising advice I found in your book. It's also full of, apart from great photos from your wife, Frida, we really have to mention that. It has some advice how to build a bed, stuff like that. But one advice surprised me, that is on shitting in the woods. You recommend everybody to stay as far away from spruce as possible. What is so wrong about spruce when shitting?
Yeah, because it's like a needle in the you know, in that area. So I don't like. So, but you know, and this is a big thing when you live out in the forest. You must find ways, and in nature, in Sweden, everywhere. So anyway, it's, you know, there are very good materials to to have instead of toilet paper, you know. So
like moss, for example, right?
So I don't know the English in English, but it's some kind of in Sweden we have it on the around Christmas when we have candles on the table. It's like kind of so we call it mossa. I don't know the name, so but it's like it's yeah, and you know it's a little bit water in it, so it's perfectly clean, and it feels like it's perfect for the ass.
If there's spruce nearby, their needles might be in the moss, right? So
yes, and then you know into the house. Yes, and I don't like because but also you can use snow, and then of course sometimes when it's a little bit warm in the day and really cold in the night, it's the surface of the snow become really hard. Then it's not a happy time for the bum, but so
Markus, you already mentioned there was a time, obviously, you returned to society after some time. How did that happen, and what prompted it? Sabine is asking, how was it for you coming back to the city? Did you struggle? Was it easy? And what did you enjoy the most back in civilization? But first of all, maybe you might want to tell us what made you leave. You said it was perfect life out there. Why did you leave?
But I realized that if I'm going to continue with this kind of life, I will not be able to go back, because you know the life you live shape you, and I have just been by myself for 4.5 years. So I realized that, and then one day a friend came and visited me, and he told me, "You must call your father." So I ran down to the village and called my father, and my father told me, if you're going to say goodbye to your grandfather, you must take the train down south. So I did that. And me and my grandfather, we were very close. He had been like a fisherman the whole life and, you know, lived close to the nature and things like that. And he had cancer in the liver, and maybe also it was in the end. And he told me, Markus, I'm going to give you an advice and listen up, because this is the last thing I'm going to tell you. And he told me, you must find yourself a woman, and then you must marry her, and then you must also let her decide over you, you know. So try to find yourself a woman. And then he died. So just maybe 2 months later, I just met Frida. And when I met her, I just felt that she's the one. So then I leave the forest and start my life together with her. Yeah.
Okay. Markus hat gerade erzählt, dass er zurückgekehrt ist, weil er Nachricht bekommen hat, dass sein Großvater im Sterben liege, mit dem er ein enges Verhältnis hatte. Und sein Großvater hat ihm als letzten Rat mitgegeben, Markus, finde eine Frau für dich, eine Frau, die auch über dich bestimmen sollte, die sagen sollte, wo es lang geht. Und dann starb sein Großvater, und zwei, drei Monate später traf er Frida, die jetzt seine Frau ist und bereits erwähnt, eine Fotografin, und die Fotos in dem Buch und auch im Wall-Magazin gemacht hat, die ganz wunderbar sind. Und Markus und Frida leben zusammen mit 3 Töchtern in einem ehemaligen Bauernhof, nicht weit von der Stelle, wo sein Zelt stand, relativ abgeschieden. Die Kinder fahren morgens mit dem Schulbus zur Schule. Jetzt würde ich gerne noch ein bisschen mehr von ihm darüber erfahren, aber wenn Sie noch Fragen haben an Markus, dann schießen Sie in den Chat und wir versuchen, die noch unterzubringen. Markus, just briefly, were there any skills you had to relearn when returning to civilization, to the city life, to the life we all live?
So it was really hard to sleep inside after, you know, maybe almost 4.5 years. Under those 4 years, I didn't sleep inside, not even one night. So that was really hard to sleep.
You went out every night, or how did you slept outside then, or you left the house to sleep?
In the beginning, I slept on the balcony, and then and I still do that a lot. but that was a little bit tough to just be inside, because I had been outside for 4.5 years, and to just, you know, all of those things, it was a little bit tough. So it's so much noises in houses and things like that, and I was used to, in the winter it's just quiet, and in the spring of course there are some birds and things like that, but so that was a little bit tough. Yeah.
Okay. I already told our listeners that you live with your wife and 3 daughters in a former farmhouse not far from the place where a tent stood. In fact, you told me the tent is still there. Do you visit it from time to time?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe one time every year. So I were there for maybe 3 weeks ago. So the frame are still standing. So yeah, and it feels very nice to visit, because it's good memories, and yeah.
Imagine you'd go there and you'd stumble across the young Markus Torgeby of those days in his tent. What would you tell him?
Just continue. Also, just continue. Don't ask me anything. Just be in the moment, because I think that's. I think it's so easy to, when you're a little bit older and you see maybe a younger person struggle, I think it's easy to try to give them some kind of advice because you want to help, and you can do that. But I think it's important that the advice you give, they must be open advice, you know. You must let the yeah. So maybe I have listened at a young Markus, but and maybe I have enjoyed that. But and then just continue, Markus, and you will find something.
Okay. But again, I'd like to read the last passage from the book. A passage that Markus told us that he likes a lot, and he'd love us to read to you. Schreibt: In der Zeit, in der wir leben, ist es so, als müsse alles, was Reibung verursacht, verschwinden. Spürt man, dass etwas schwer ist, stimmt etwas nicht. Wir sind andauernd high, süchtig nach Eindrücken, ständig getrieben und auf Trab. Solange es eine Fülle an Erlebnissen und Nahrung gibt, stopfen wir uns damit voll. Und wir fragen uns, warum es nicht funktioniert. Warum sind wir nicht glücklich? Ich denke, es liegt daran, dass wir nach Glück suchen, während wir stattdessen nach Sinn streben sollten. Markus, I'd like to know what your experience means for the education of your 3 daughters. You spoke about quietness, about finding yourself, about giving yourself time to find yourself. What about your daughters? They are like 7 to 15 or 16, sorry. Are they allowed to have smartphones? Are they allowed to spend time on social media? Or are you trying to keep them away from all that?
No. I think the most important things as a father, I try to. They must find also this connection and relationship with social media, because you must realize it's around you. And I think me and my wife, we try to just show them this world, because if they find this world, I think they will build like a good foundation, as a ground in themselves. And you know, we live close to nature and we are outside a lot, but we don't talk about it so much. We just do, and they see that. So they have like, I think my older girl, I think she has Instagram, but it's they have like a good relationship with that. So for me, it's no problem, because and we try to ask them, not to show them so much. We just ask them, so they take back that question into their own head and try to. They must ask themselves questions, and I think So that's the way we try to do it.
Do you think, maybe you're not the right person to ask it, but do you think that they seeing the alternative, the quiet life up in the north where you live 1 hour from school, do you think that having an alternative to Instagram and stuff like that is something that keeps them from social media, or is that?
No, but I think they really appreciate the both worlds. And you know, I think they realize why we live the way we live, and they are free to live their own life. But you know, me and my wife's ambition is to give them good memories, because I think good memories, it's the big, so it's the best money you can have, you know. And so that's just me and my Frida as my wife's ambition to give them that. And I think it's important. Also, when the kids see the parents happy, I think that's the best thing you can give them. And they feel that they are free to live their own life, because this is me and Frida and now their lives. But if my older daughter will move to a city, so it's okay, because they will remember this. And I think this will help them in the future. They will realize when a little bit tougher times will come and hit them in the future. I think they will realize that, okay, today it's a little bit tough. Maybe I can go out just in the forest and to just feel. So try to give them that. Yeah.
I would have two last questions for you. One is from Michael, a listener to us. Michael asked, how did you actually meet Frida? Wasn't it difficult to be intimate with someone after so many years on your own?
Yes, it was really tough. You know, I was invited to a wedding. So it was so I go down south, because it was a friend from my childhood. So, and the day before the wedding, me and a couple of friends were, you know, on a small party, and then I just saw her. She had like a red wool sweater, and I just felt it, that she is the one. So, you know, and I thought that maybe she feel the same way. So, yeah. And from that, it was just us. And of course,
Was it also hard for Frida to live with a guy who is not used to live with people?
Yes, of course. But you know, Frida, she is a really strong and good woman. So I think she realized that we must just put some time into this, and then it will be okay. No rush and no stress. So, and it took some time to find a way together, because I was used to my kind of life and Frida was used to her kind of life, and to find this together road in front. So it took some time, but yeah, now life is, it feels rich, you know.
Okay. It's now like 15 or so years ago that you returned from the woods. And last question, what made you writing this wonderful book and doing it together with Frida? What was the motivation? Why did you do that?
You know, my only ambition is to try to open up this door to this world, because I think it's so important to build a relationship with nature, because I think if you do that, you will also get a bigger understanding for nature, but also for yourself, because you will realize that life is circular. So that's my only ambition, to open up this door into this, because I want to help people to live a rich life. And, you know, in Sweden anyway, nature is always open, but I think there are so many people that they have forgot that. And I want to remind them of that, you know, and yeah. So that's my ambition.
Well, then I have to say thank you for the great book that you two did. Thank you for this evening, Markus. And you told us before that you're going to spend the night outside in a tipi with your few friends. So sounds like you have a wonderful evening in front of you.
Yes, thank you, Harald.
Thank you very much to Sweden, and hope to speak to you soon. And
bye. Bye. Thank you.
Das war's für heute. Wir würden uns freuen, wenn Sie diese Folge auf der Lit-Lounge-Seite bewerten und uns schreiben würden, was Ihnen gefallen hat und was Ihnen vielleicht weniger gefallen hat. Einen Mitschnitt finden Sie morgen auf den Facebook-Kanälen von Lit-Lounge und Wolke, außerdem auf Lit-Lounge TV und auf dem Lit-Lounge YouTube-Kanal. Ich muss außerdem noch eine ganz ehrlich gemeinte Werbeeinblendung hinterher schieben. Also ernsthaft, dieses Buch ist wundervoll geschrieben, es ist toll gestaltet und es hat wunderbare Bilder von Frida Torgeby. Es ist wirklich wert zu lesen und zu kaufen. Das Buch bekommen Sie natürlich in jedem guten Buchladen. Außerdem über den Link zu diesem Chat. Dort finden Sie auch einen Link, über den Sie ein Probeexemplar unseres Magazins Walden bestellen können, das im Übrigen nach dem Buch eines anderen Typen benannt ist, der eigentlich nur 2 Jahre in einem Wald am Walden Pond verbracht hat. Also so gibt es eine kleine Verbindung. Und Markus hat mir erzählt, er hat auch Walden von Henry David Thoreau gelesen. Wenn Sie Lust haben, unser Magazin zu lesen, es gibt einen Link da. Sollten Sie sich dann demnächst in die Wälder aufmachen, nehmen Sie vielleicht Markus' Buch und unser Magazin mit. Haben Sie was Gutes zu lesen? Denken Sie aber immer dran, wenn Sie in den Wäldern sind, Abstand zu Fichten halten. Viel Spaß da draußen, einen schönen Abend.